You guys ever think about changing your steering wheel? You don't know if you want to do it yourself? Well, guess what? I'm going to show you guys how you can change your steering wheel in your BMW to the style like this, which is all leather, to something a little cooler, like this all carbon fiber and leather wrapped M Sport steering wheel. Stay with me in this video and I'll show you guys exactly how you can upgrade your own steering wheel in your car. You don't need to pay anybody for it. It's pretty easy and I'll show you how to do it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. To all my long-time subscribers, welcome as usual. And if you're first time here, welcome of course. Today I'm going to be upgrading my steering wheel in my wife's BMW. This is a project that I've been thinking about doing for a long time, and I know a lot of people think about doing it. It's not that complicated. There are a couple things you need to follow along with and make sure you do properly, since you'll be dealing with the airbag. Other than that, it's just a few screws that you need to worry about, and that's why I'm here. I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Now, one of the things you want to make sure that when you're dealing with the airbag is you want to be safe and you don't want this thing to deploy. So what you want to do is you want to disconnect the battery. Now, on these BMWs, the batteries are a little bit tricky. They're located in the trunk, but all you need to do is find where it's located, and then you're going to disconnect the negative terminal, and you should be good to go to start the repair on this vehicle. Once you have the battery disconnected, you won't have to worry about the airbag deploying, and you should be good to go. All right? So, with that out of the way, let's jump into it, and I'll show you guys exactly what you want to do first. Now that we have our airbag disconnected, the first thing you want to do is you want to take yourself a screwdriver, preferably a flathead. There are two holes on either side of the steering wheel. What you want to do is you want to insert your screwdriver into one of the holes at a 45-degree angle, and what you're feeling for is a bracket that's inside. And what you want to do is you want to press in, because there's a spring that holds the airbag in. You want to press in on the screwdriver and release one side of the airbag. You're going to repeat the step on the other side through the other hole and pulling on the airbag when you feel it releasing. Once you have the clips released, your airbag should be out like this. The next thing you want to do is you want to release the clips that are holding the airbag onto the steering wheel. Once you tip it forward, next thing you want to do is you want to release this clip. There is a tab on the top. You can just press it down, and then you'll be able to remove the plug from the airbag. Once you have your airbag out, you want to set it down somewhere on a surface facing up, just in case it deploys, it won't damage anything. All right, so set your airbag aside. Next thing you want to do is release this clip here. There is a tab on the top. All you need to do is put your screwdriver in, pry the tab up, and you should be able to pull that out. Now that you have that disconnected, the only other thing that may be connected in some cases is you may have a connection cable here. You want to go ahead and disconnect that as well. Now, with that out the way, the last thing we want to do is disconnect our center bolt. Now, all you need to do is use a 16mm socket, and we're going to loosen that bolt. Once you have it loosened, take your center bolt out, and your steering wheel is pretty much ready to be removed. Now that we've removed all the bolts and the cables and the airbag, the only thing holding on this steering wheel is me. So all you got to do is pull back on it, and that's it. Your steering wheel is off. Now let's take this thing to the workbench. Let's disassemble it. Let me show you how to do that, and we're going to move all of our stuff from this wheel to our new wheel. Come on, let's do it. All right, now that we have our steering wheel on our workbench, we're going to start removing screws. For most of this, actually all of this, we're going to use a Torx T20 screwdriver. And what we want to do is remove the 3 screws that are holding on the bezel on our steering wheel. There's one located at the base of the steering wheel on the back, and the other 2 are located on the front side. I'll show you that when I flip it over. So what we want to do is remove the screw first in the back. Once that's done, you can flip over your steering wheel, and then we're going to get the 2 screws that are holding the bezel on. They're slightly hidden, but you should be able to get to them no problem. Loosen these 2 screws, remove them, set them aside, and then once you have the screws removed, all you need to do next is just kind of pull up on the bezel. Don't be too rough with it. It should just snap off. Once you have the bezel removed, you can set it aside, and you're ready to proceed to the next step. All right, now that we have the bezel removed, guys, guess what? we're looking at a bunch of wires. Don't be intimidated. If you feel overwhelmed, take a picture of it so you know where everything goes. But what we want to start doing now is we want to start disconnecting these wires. There's one pin here we're going to disconnect, and then there's a screw for the grounding screw. We're going to go ahead and disconnect these. And once we have them disconnected, the next thing is we're going to be looking for these two blue or purple, depending on if you're colorblind like me or not, connectors down here. What you want to do is you want to disconnect them, or actually remove them first. The way to remove them, I found, is to use some sort of pick tool or screwdriver to pry up on the black tabs that are holding them down. They just pull, the black tabs just pull straight up. Once you have those black tabs up, you'll have access to the connectors. The next thing you want to do is just loosen all the wires. They're usually under some clips. You just want to loosen them so you have some room to work. And once you have these wires loose, you can go ahead and disconnect these plugs. Now, the easy way I find is to use a small screwdriver or a small pick to get up under the tab and just pry them open or pry them away, and then you'll be able to disconnect the plugs. Once you have them disconnected, you're done with the next step. The next thing we're going to do is move on to removing the paddle shifters. Alright, the paddle shifters are only held in place by two T20 screws as well. They're located on the right and left of the steering wheel. All you need to do is loosen these screws, remove them, set them aside, and your paddle shifters are out. Once you got the paddle shifters out, next we can jump into removing the buttons. Alright, the only screws holding in your buttons are on the back of the steering wheel. So flip your steering wheel over and you'll see these screws on the right and the left. Just loosen the screws, and those are the only things holding in the buttons. Once you have the screws removed, you can flip the steering wheel back over and you'll be able to remove the buttons, and you can set them aside. Once all the buttons are removed, the next thing you want to do is separate the shell from the steering wheel. This just pops off. There's nothing holding it in place. And now, if you guys had a third-party steering wheel, you're probably going to need to transfer the airbag retention clip bracket that's held on here by 3 screws. Again, they're T20 screws. All you need to do is loosen these screws. They should come right out. Once you have the screws removed, you can separate it from the steering wheel, and now you're ready to start the assembly of your new steering wheel. Alright, now we're ready for the assembly of the new steering wheel. The first thing you want to do is you want to reinstall the airbag bracket. Again, this is just held in by the 3 screws that you removed. You want to put the screws in. I like to put them in by hand first and then tighten them with a screwdriver. You don't want to over tighten them here. You just want to get them nice and snug. But once you have the screws in and they're tight, you're pretty much done with the first step. The next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and put on the back shell of the steering wheel. This just clips back on. Once you have this on, the next thing we're going to move on to is putting back in the buttons. Now, we're not going to connect them yet. We just want to tighten the screws. So put your buttons back on, make sure they're lined up right, and install the screws that are holding them in place. It's a little bit tricky. You might have to flip the steering wheel over and hold it with one hand while you're holding the buttons, and then catch a screw and tighten it up. But you'll get the hang of it. It's not too bad. Once you have these 2 screws tightened and your buttons are in, the next thing you want to jump to is you want to put back in the paddle shifters. Now, again, you want to thread the blue clip through the hole in your steering wheel, and then you're going to put the paddle shifters on. Make sure you put them on in the right direction. So put the plus 1 on the left and the -1 on the right, or however you took them off. Just remember to put them back on the same way you did. Once you have the paddle shifters back on and the screws tightened up, the last thing we're going to have to do is try and organize and reconnect all the wires that we did, that we removed from before. Alright, don't be intimidated now. This is probably the hardest part. So all we really need to do is reorganize the wires. Now get this. If you took a picture at the beginning of this, this is exactly what you need to do just to see where all the wires went. The most important thing is that you want to make sure that you have the blue connectors connected. And you're going to use a bit of, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Force, or actually not force. That's not a good idea. You just want to use a little bit of care to reroute the wires back how they were originally. They're going to fit in the grooves around the side of the steering wheel. And all you need to do is they'll find their place. The blue connectors will clip back into the housing. All you need to do is push down on the black tabs, and it will be seated back inside the shell. And then all you have to do after that is just reroute the wires and kind of tuck them away behind the clips that are inside the steering wheel. One of the last things you need to remember is don't forget to connect the grounding screw and also the little pin connector that's connected on the base of the bracket for the steering wheel. Once you have all your wires routed and they're out of the way, you're pretty much done. The last thing we need to do after this is to put the shell back on. It just snaps back into place, and all you need to do is fasten the 3 screws, the 2 on the front side and the 1 on the back side of the steering wheel. And once you have all of those screws in place, your clip is on and all your wires are tucked away nice and neat. Now you're ready to jump back into the car and put this thing back on and see if it works, which hopefully if you did everything right, it should. All right, now that we're back in the car, the hard part is done. Now we just got to put the steering wheel back on. So all we need to do is slide it on like we took it off. We're going to reconnect the cables that we have here, the cable for our airbag, and put our airbag back in. All you need to do is line up the steering wheel with the grooves and push it on, and that's it. What we want to do next is you want to connect all the cables. We'll first start by connecting this one here. Push it until it clips. Next we just take the center bolt, put it back in. And next you just want to torque it down to the recommended setting. Mine is 46 for the BMW, but yours may differ. Once you have it torqued down, the next thing you want to do is you want to put in your airbag. All you got to do is line up the clip it in, and then you want to put your airbag in and work it till it goes back in the slots. We're going to start on the left side first and then the right side by just pressing in till it clips in. And that's it. The only thing you have left to do now is let's go ahead and connect the battery. All right, now that you got your battery connected, all you need to do now is turn the car on, take it for a test drive, and check out your new steering wheel. By the way, this is amazing. It's a much needed upgrade from the old one. It was kind of falling apart. If you guys want to do something like this, I encourage you, go ahead, go for it. It's not that hard. All right, everything seems to be working. Testing out the volume, you check all your controls, everything seems to be working fine. Horn works. So yeah, pretty much everything is installed correctly. All right guys, thanks for watching. If you guys found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.